So I've got the suspension, the rear suspension removed from the Wanderlodge. So I thought it might help someone if I went over a few of the components. And it's a lot easier to see how everything goes together when it's out from under the bus. So it's a Rockwell R155 axle, which is the rear of an SSHD Rockwell pair. So if you see a tandem axle truck from this vintage, like 78 or so to probably 85 or 86, if it's a heavy haul truck, if they got the heavy axle of the day, they've often got this one. So if you're looking for parts, you can Google either SSHD Rockwell or R155 Rockwell. So these are the brake pots. I've got new airbags coming. It's a 4-bag air ride. So the axle actually sits between two airbags, and then there's a hard point, a pivot point up at the front. So the truck systems, they ride on one bag. So they're not really, there's like a semi-floating. But with the motorhome axle, they went a step further and they suspend the axle off the two bags, so it's a fully floating air ride, which is supposedly a little more comfortable, and I have to say it does ride really well. So these are the brake chambers. This is one of the old ones I'm pulling off. And I have to say, all the rubber parts and even these bags, I've got all the receipts from this motorhome. It's a 1981. I believe these bags are original. They're not cracked or checked. They look really good. Same with, this is the original brake pot, I'm pretty sure. It's got the steel, the removable clamp on the spring brake portion. This is a Type 30 brake pot. If you're looking for one, that's what you want to order, is a Type 30. And the old style, they had this removable clamp, but there's a massive spring in there, and it's big enough to lock that dually wheel setup at high speed. So if you pull that clamp off without properly caging the spring inside, it can take your head right off, and has actually. It's killed people. So the new ones, they've actually got a formed ring around the spring brake so that you can't inadvertently take your own head off when you're doing repairs. So that's the way the new one comes. And all of the brakes, back, so yeah, this one's actually got the little caging bolt still in its holder there. And every brake, spring brake, new or old, it comes with a caging bolt, so you can make that spring safe before you do any work. So I had to cage that one before I pulled it off, so I'll just actually show you how you do that on the other one, because I've got to cage the other one as well. So it's just this little T deal here. So you slide it into the end, and there's often a plug on this hole here, but you pull the plug and there's always this whole keyhole there. Slide that in, spin it a couple times, and it fits in behind, and when it's anchored in there, you can't pull it back out. It's locked in place. If you have a broken spring in there, it actually makes everything cockeyed, and it's tough to get that in there, but it'll still go. It's just, you got to kind of wiggle it in at an angle so you'll know. You can shine a light in there and see whether everything's lined up or not. And then you just wind this thing in. If you're having trouble winding it in, you can apply air. You can apply air pressure, assuming it's still, attached to the machine. If you make sure that your wheels are chocked, but you can release the spring with air, and that does most of the job for you. But this is out of the bus, so I'm just going to wind it in with it. There's my impactor. Bolt's quite long actually, so I can't quite get the whole thing. And you want to wind it all the way in until it stops, pretty much. I'll just finish it off with my wrench, which is what I had to do with the other side. There. that's pretty much seated now. So that spring is safe now. So if you had to, you could pull this clamp off. But I strongly recommend you don't. Just cage the rotten thing, take it off, throw the whole thing away, and put a new one on. They're cheap enough. I think I just bought the 2 new ones, and I forget, I think I paid like 120 bucks each for them. You can go cheaper, but I got better ones. I don't like offshore parts, so these are, I think they're American made. They're a Bendix part, I think. There, so that's caged, and I can pull that off safely without taking my own head off. So this is the old slack adjuster. It's manually adjustable, and it's hard to see when you're under there, but it's got this, it's a 9/16 nut with a collar on it. And I like to use what's called a brake buddy. You can get these at truck stops. If you want to test it, you can use it as a pry bar, and you put that on there like that, and you pull up on it and see how much play you've got. And at the other end, you've got the 9/16. So you just put that on there, push the little collar down, and then you can adjust it. And I'm going to these fancy automatic slacks, so I don't have to crawl under there and mess with it anymore. And so the way it works is when you apply brakes, either through the spring brake or through the service brake, there's a push rod here. And here it's obviously quite a bit longer. I have to cut that to length. If you're ever cutting one of these to length, you've got to make sure you've uncaged the spring first so that you get the correct length. Because I've done this. You cage the bolt, you think, oh, I got a short little push rod, you cut the new one to match, and then you realize that once you've made it way too short. So make sure the caging bolt is removed before you cut the thing to length. Anyway, what was I saying here? Oh yeah, so spring brake, so they push the push rod comes out, pushes against the slack adjuster, and it's just basically a lever, and you can probably see better on this one, but it's splined, and then that forces that what's called the cam around. So the cam twists, and on the brake shoe side, you can see it's got that it's called an S cam, but I've got it slid out a little bit, but there's a couple of rollers there. Just lined it up again. So the S-cam moves around, it rolls, and pushes the shoes against the drums. So there you go. That's how it all works.